Imagine being one of the most talented quarterbacks in NFL history, breaking record after record, yet never capturing the ultimate prize. Dan Marino's name stands for greatness, but it's also marked by the absence of a Super Bowl ring. Today, we'll explore how Marino redefined what it means to be a quarterback, setting records that seemed untouchable and leaving a mark on football that goes beyond championships. Did his journey really need a title to be complete? This is the legacy of Dan Marino, the golden arm that changed the game forever. Dan Marino's journey began in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a city built on steel, resilience, and unbreakable spirits. Born on September 15, 1961, Marino was raised in the Oakland neighborhood, an area known for its blue-collar roots and passionate sports culture. In a place where grit was the foundation and hard work the expectation, young Marino found his first lessons in discipline and perseverance, values that would carry him through his career. Growing up, Marino spent countless hours in the narrow streets of Pittsburgh, playing makeshift games of football with his friends. They'd used telephone poles as goalposts, and each throw was a test of precision. Dodging cars and neighborhood obstacles, Marino quickly developed his famous quick release and accuracy. It was here that the essence of his game took shape, even before he knew the heights he would reach. Much of his foundation came from his father, Dan Marino Sr., a newspaper deliverman who often worked long hours through the night. Despite his demanding job, Dan Sr. would make time to throw the football with his son in the backyard, sharing moments that went beyond the sport. For young Dan, those throws weren't just practice, they were a way to connect with his father, who was instilling values of consistency and precision that would come to define him. From his father, Marino learned not only the famous flick of the wrist that would mark his career, but also the importance of staying grounded and focused. Marino was a gifted athlete in more ways than one. At Central Catholic High School, he starred as a pitcher and a quarterback, capturing attention in both sports. He had an arm that could send a baseball flying with as much precision as a football, and his talents didn't go unnoticed. In 1979, the Kansas City Royals drafted him in the 4th round of the MLB draft and offered him a signing bonus of $35,000, a huge opportunity for a teenager from Pittsburgh. But for Marino, football held an allure that baseball couldn't match. He wanted to stay close to home, to play on the same fields he'd grown up admiring, and to represent his city in the sport he loved most. Choosing to attend the University of Pittsburgh was more than a career decision. It was a commitment to his roots. Pitt's campus was just a few blocks from where he grew up, and Marino was driven by the dream of achieving greatness for his hometown. His freshman season was a glimpse of what was to come. By his junior year, Marino had already become a standout, leading the Pitt Panthers to 11-win seasons for 3 consecutive years. He was building a reputation as one of the most precise and powerful quarterbacks in college football. But it was his performance in the 1982 Sugar Bowl against Georgia that truly sealed his status. With the game on the line and seconds ticking away, Marino threw a perfect pass for a game-winning touchdown. That moment was more than just a victory. It was a realization of all the times he had dreamed about making that kind of play. Right from his schoolyard games to this national stage, you fantasize about great last-second comebacks when you're playing on the schoolyard. He later reflected, but this was real. By the time Marino declared for the NFL draft in 1983, he was a star in Pittsburgh and beyond. Yet, the draft process would be filled with unexpected twists. Despite his success, rumors circulated about his inconsistency on the field and whispers of a lifestyle that made some teams wary. As Marino sat and watched team after team pass him over, including the Pittsburgh Steelers, his mind must have raced with questions and frustration. Had he done enough? Would he get the chance he had worked so hard for? It wasn't until the 27th pick that the Miami Dolphins finally took a chance on him. Coach Don Shula, who later admitted he couldn't believe Marino was still available, knew he had something special. For Marino, this was more than a relief, it was a call to action. He now had a chance to prove every doubter wrong, to show those who'd overlooked him what he was truly capable of. This wasn't just a draft selection. It was the start of a journey that would rewrite NFL history. For the young quarterback, Stepping into the Miami Dolphins organization was like being handed the keys to a powerful machine, one that had already built a reputation for greatness. Coach Don Shula, a name revered in the NFL, became an essential part of his journey from the start. The trust Shula placed in him, despite the concerns that had kept other teams away, ignited a drive within Marino to prove himself on a new level. Here, he found the opportunity he'd been waiting for, a chance to show the league what others had failed to see. Taking over as a starter by the 6th game of his rookie season, he was no longer just a prospect with potential. He was now the leader of an NFL offense, a role that came with both pressures and expectations. Miami fans watched as he took to the field with a confidence and precision rarely seen in a rookie. Week by week, his quick decision-making and that legendary wrist flick turned heads, not just in Miami but across the country. By the end of that first season, he had already led the Dolphins to a 12-win, 4-loss record and claimed the AFC East title. The honors quickly followed Rookie of the Year and the first rookie quarterback to start in the Pro Bowl. But beyond the accolades, what mattered to him most was showing that he belonged there, that he could elevate the Dolphins and carry them forward. It was in his second season that everything seemed to align, when he could finally unleash his full potential. The year 1984 became one for the ages. With each game, he pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible. His arm produced numbers that no one had seen before: 5,084 passing yards, 48 touchdowns, a season that felt almost unreal. The stadiums felt electric with every pass, as if each throw was defying the limits of the sport. For his teammates, it was clear that something special was unfolding. Mark Clayton and Mark Duper, his primary targets, became household names as they racked up yards and touchdowns with ease. Together, they formed a connection that was almost instinctual, a dynamic force that left defenses scrambling to catch up. The numbers themselves told one story, but there was something else: a sense that he was doing more than just playing the game. The way he read defenses, processing plays in split seconds, was like watching a chess master anticipate every move of his opponent. When other players saw chaos, he saw order. This ability didn't just earn him the MVP title and countless records. It made him a game changer. Opposing teams didn't just prepare for the Dolphins, they prepared for him, crafting strategies specifically to counter his quick release and precision. As the season wore on, the Dolphins tore through their competition, and the path to the Super Bowl opened up before them. By the time the big game arrived, it felt like the story was set for the perfect ending, one where a young quarterback, defying all odds, would claim the ultimate victory. But the Super Bowl isn't just another game. It's a stage that demands every ounce of focus, resilience, and control. Across from them stood the San Francisco 49ers, led by Joe Montana, a quarterback as skilled and as composed as he was. The game did not unfold as expected. The 49ers defense came prepared, disrupting the timing that had defined Miami's success all season. Passes that had once flown effortlessly through the air were now challenged as defenders closed in. There was no easy path to the end zone this time, and each yard felt like a battle. For someone who had always been able to find a way, the frustration was palpable. It wasn't just a loss, it was a missed opportunity, a dream that had seemed so close slipping away with each tackle and interception. Later, reflecting on that game, he would call his AFC Championship ring from that season a loser's ring, a reminder of a night when everything he had worked for was just out of reach. The aftermath of that Super Bowl loss weighed heavily on him. That one game, which had been his opportunity to crown a remarkable season, now sat as an unresolved chapter in his career. Each time he looked down at his AFC Championship ring, it reminded him of what could have been. To him, it wasn't a symbol of achievement, but of a goal left unfulfilled. The championship ring had become a symbol he felt obligated to chase, not for the fame or accolades, but for a sense of completion. No amount of records or personal accomplishments would ever match the validation that a Super Bowl victory represented in his mind. For someone who had always fought to be the best, that missing piece felt like a gap he had to fill. As the following seasons unfolded, it became clear that the road back to the Super Bowl would not be easy. His competitive spirit was relentless, But the same couldn't be said for the evolving roster around him. The Dolphins struggled to maintain a defense that could stand up to the high standards of the league. Year after year, he led an offense capable of overwhelming most opponents. Yet his efforts were often undercut by a defense that couldn't consistently keep other teams at bay. Each game turned into a high-stakes battle, where every yard he gained was a testament to his skill. But every touchdown felt bittersweet when the other side of the field faltered. He learned to carry the weight of these losses, finding motivation in each defeat, but also feeling the creeping frustration. The intensity of the game never let up, and the demands on his body increased with each passing season. Yet, he rarely showed signs of slowing down. With an unyielding focus, he led his team week after week, taking hits that would have sidelined others. The toll on his body was visible, but did nothing to diminish his passion for the game. Injuries became a part of his routine, and he learned to play through pain that few others could understand. Each time he lined up on the field, it was a silent declaration that no setback could keep him away. The physical strain was evident, but it was the weight of expectation, the drive to return to that elusive championship, that kept him pushing forward. One grueling game at a time. The true test of his endurance came in 1993, when a severe Achilles injury threatened to end his streak of consecutive starts. For years, he had been the one constant in the Dolphins lineup, a symbol of stability and strength. The tear was a devastating blow, a reminder that even he was not invincible. As he underwent surgery, there was a moment when he faced the real possibility of never returning to the game. Yet, for him, quitting was never an option. Rehabilitation was grueling, and each day was a reminder of how far he still had to go. But the idea of stepping away was something he couldn't entertain. He fought back with the same tenacity that had marked his entire career, determined to overcome what could have been a career-ending injury. Returning to the field after such a significant injury wasn't just a physical achievement. It was a testament to his mental fortitude. When he finally suited up again, he knew that every step he took was hard-earned, a victory over the doubts that had shadowed his recovery. He was no longer playing just to win games. He was proving to himself and everyone watching that he could still command the field, injury or not. Each throw after his return was charged with purpose, a reminder that he was still the leader of this team, still the one who could change the course of a game. Yet, despite his resilience, there was an unspoken realization that time was catching up, that the body he had pushed to its limits might not endure forever. The Dolphins' defense remained a thorn in his side, and as he put up remarkable numbers year after year, the frustration grew. It wasn't that he expected perfection, but the gap between his performance and the support he received on the other side of the ball was undeniable. Every loss became a reminder of what he couldn't control, the pieces he couldn't fix. While he did everything he could to elevate his team, the feeling that it would never be enough was hard to shake. No matter how many records he set, no matter how many touchdowns he threw, there was always the question of whether it would lead to another shot at the championship. The struggle was no longer just against the teams he faced, but against the limits of what he alone could accomplish. As seasons passed, fans and analysts alike began to discuss the what-ifs of his career. What if he had played with a stronger defense? What if the injuries hadn't slowed him down? He often brushed these conversations aside, refusing to entertain the notion that circumstances could dictate his legacy. In his mind, there was no room for excuses. Every challenge was just another part of the journey, another test of his ability to rise above. Still, the reality was undeniable. The support he needed wasn't always there, and the chances he longed for were slipping through his fingers, one lost season at a time. Through it all, his competitive fire never dimmed. There was an intensity in his eyes every time he stepped onto the field, a fierce determination that showed he was still chasing that elusive victory. The years may have added more weight to his shoulders, but they had also sharpened his focus. Even as younger players entered the league, Marino remained a figure of respect, his legacy already secure in many ways. But for him, the journey wasn't over. The dream of a Super Bowl, of proving to himself that he could overcome every obstacle, was still alive. It was the goal that drove him, the one thing he couldn't let go. The late 90s brought a new set of challenges as age and accumulated injuries began to affect his play. His body was no longer as forgiving, and the relentless demands of the NFL took their toll. There were days when the pain was so intense that every step felt like a battle. Yet, even with worn knees, a troublesome ankle, and nerve issues in his neck, he found a way to keep playing. For him, the pain was just another opponent, one he had to overcome if he was going to keep fighting for that final chance at glory. In many ways, these struggles only added to his legend. He was no longer just a quarterback. He was a warrior, pushing beyond what anyone thought possible. In 1999, with the weight of an entire career on his shoulders, he knew that the end was near. Each game felt like it could be his last, each throw a piece of the legacy he had spent years building. There was a bitter sweetness to those final games, a sense of urgency mixed with the acceptance that time waits for no one. As he approached his final season, he took the field with a resolve that came from years of triumphs and heartbreaks. This wasn't just about winning or losing anymore. It was about leaving the game on his terms, showing that even in his final moments, he was still the quarterback who could inspire awe. When he finally made the decision to retire, it wasn't a surrender, but a conclusion to a journey that had been as relentless as he was. The records, the unforgettable moments, and the unmatched performances were all part of a career that had transcended the game. He had played not just to win, but to redefine what was possible. And even though that Super Bowl ring remained out of reach, his legacy was far greater than a single game or title. He had changed the way the game was played, setting a standard for future generations of quarterbacks to aspire to. Looking back, the legacy he left was one of resilience and unbreakable will. His story wasn't defined by the absence of a Super Bowl, but by the countless battles he fought on the field, the records he broke, and the heart he put into every game. He had proven that greatness isn't just about the trophies you hold, but about the impact you leave behind. For fans, for his teammates, and for future quarterbacks, he had become a symbol of excellence, a reminder that true success is measured not by a single victory, but by the relentless pursuit of one's potential. In the end, the Effete Championship ring he had once called a loser's ring became something more. It was a symbol of his journey, a testament to the highs and lows, the victories and the missed chances. And while he may have walked away without that elusive Super Bowl ring, he left with something far more enduring, a place in the hearts of fans, and a legacy that would inspire long after he left the field. Each record he shattered became a new testament to the talent that had captivated fans for nearly 2 decades. With 61,361 passing yards and 420 touchdowns, he had climbed to a pinnacle few quarterbacks could even dream of. His quick release, that signature flick of the wrist, was still as precise and powerful as ever. Every throw was executed with pinpoint accuracy, and each completion felt like another piece of his legacy taking shape. His movements on the field spoke of a confidence that came from years of pushing himself past every limit, a mastery of the game that made his name synonymous with greatness. For 6 seasons, he led the league in completions, setting a standard of excellence that quarterbacks would chase for generations. His career had reached heights that seemed untouchable, and as he continued to break records, there was an undeniable sense that he was crafting something historic. These numbers were more than statistics, they were symbols of dedication, resilience, and a passion for the game that never faded. But with each accolade, the shadow of an unclaimed Super Bowl grew larger. In the minds of many, he was already a legend, but he couldn't ignore the sense of incompleteness that lingered, the feeling that his journey still lacked a final crowning achievement. As he looked back on his career, it was impossible not to reflect on the duality of his accomplishments. On one hand, he had achieved greatness that few could rival. On the other, he carried the weight of a title that had eluded him, a single missing piece that echoed in every conversation about his legacy. Friends and fans often reassured him, pointing to the records and the unforgettable moments he'd given to the sport. Yet, he couldn't help but wonder what might have been. For him, the absence of a Super Bowl was not just a gap in his resume. It was a mark that underscored the highs and lows of a career that had pushed him to his limits. He had long accepted that he was unlikely to achieve perfection, yet he had never stopped striving for it. Each pass he threw was a reminder of the mastery he'd developed, a precision that had been crafted through years of dedication. But with every season that passed without a Super Bowl, his career began to feel like a complex puzzle, one with a piece forever missing. It wasn't a lack of effort or desire, but perhaps an element of fate, a reality that no amount of skill or preparation could alter. In his quieter moments, he wondered if perhaps his legacy was meant to be more about the journey than the destination. In interviews, he would often downplay the significance of the Super Bowl, yet those who knew him understood the internal conflict. Publicly, he spoke of pride in his accomplishments and gratitude for the opportunities he'd been given. Privately, the weight of that missing title was ever present, a reminder of the elusive nature of success. He often reflected on his most defining games, the moments when he had felt unstoppable. Yet, despite the highlights, he knew that his story would always be framed by what he had achieved and what he had missed. The records he held were more than enough to secure his place in NFL history, but he wondered if they could truly complete the legacy he had envisioned. Fans and analysts debated his career endlessly, discussing whether his greatness was diminished by the absence of a championship. For some, his records were evidence of his brilliance, proof that his contributions had transcended any single game. For others, the lack of a Super Bowl left a question mark, an unresolved chapter that seemed to linger over his achievements. To him, these debates were both flattering and frustrating. He appreciated the recognition, but he couldn't ignore the feeling that his career would always be viewed through this lens, that his story would always carry an asterisk, even in the hearts of his most loyal fans. Yet, his response to these doubts was never bitterness or resentment. Instead, he approached each game with a renewed drive, an unspoken resolve to prove that his value could not be measured solely by a ring. Every record he broke was a statement, a reminder that the depth of his contributions went beyond titles. In his eyes, his career was about the thrill of the game, the love of competition, and the impact he had made on those who watched him play. He saw himself as a quarterback who had changed the game, a player whose influence would ripple through the NFL for years to come. The Super Bowl might have eluded him, but he had left an indelible mark. As he neared the end of his career, the reflections grew deeper, and the contrasts in his journey became more vivid. He recognized that his legacy was a complex narrative, one of triumphs and challenges, of records set and championships missed. In many ways, this duality had come to define him. He was both a hero and a symbol of unrealized potential, a legend who had achieved more than most, but had been denied the ultimate prize. His career wasn't simply a story of wins and losses. It was a story of resilience, of standing tall in the face of setbacks, and of defining success on his own terms. For younger players, he became an example of what it meant to be a true professional, to face challenges with grace and determination. His journey was a reminder that greatness could exist even without a championship, that a career could be fulfilling even if it was marked by what might have been. He had inspired a generation of quarterbacks, proving that success wasn't limited to those who held trophies. In his legacy, there was a lesson about the beauty of the pursuit itself, about the value of pushing oneself to the limit, regardless of the outcome. For him, that was the true meaning of greatness. Reflecting on his years in the NFL, he often spoke about the joy he found in the game, the thrill of competition, and the camaraderie he shared with his teammates. Winning had always been a priority, but he understood that his career was filled with moments that went beyond any title. Each throw, each game, and each season had been a part of something larger. For him, the records he had set were symbols of the impact he had on the sport, the countless fans he had inspired, and the legacy that would endure long after his final game. In his mind, he had given everything he could to the game, and that was enough. As he approached his final season, he felt a sense of closure. He understood that he might never hold the Lombardi Trophy, but he took pride in the knowledge that he had achieved something meaningful. His career was a mosaic of experiences, each one contributing to a legacy that was rich, complex, and uniquely his own. He knew that history would remember him not just for the titles he didn't win, but for the way he had transformed the position, for the standard of excellence he had set. He was proud of what he had built, a career defined by resilience, skill, and a love for the game that few could match. In his final games, he played with a sense of freedom, as if the weight of expectation had finally lifted. Every pass felt like a tribute to the years he had dedicated, a final farewell to the game that had given him so much. He had come to terms with his journey, accepting both the triumphs and the disappointments. To him, these last moments on the field were a celebration of everything he had accomplished, a way to leave the game on his own terms. His career would be remembered for its brilliance, and he had no regrets about the path he had taken. Ultimately, his story was one of impact, of a player who had changed the game in ways that went beyond titles and trophies. His records, his dedication, and his resilience had redefined what it meant to be a quarterback. Even without a Super Bowl, he'd left a legacy that would inspire generations. He had proven that greatness could be measured not only by championships, but by the lasting influence one had on the game. As we reach the end of this journey, one question lingers. Did greatness truly need a Super Bowl ring to be complete? From the moment he stepped onto the field, he played with a passion and precision that redefined the role of quarterback, leaving fans in awe and opponents scrambling. Championships might be the ultimate measure for some, but his career was filled with moments that resonated far beyond a single title. Each record he set, every incredible pass he completed, was part of a legacy built not only on wins and losses, but on the sheer brilliance he brought to the game. His story challenges the notion that championships alone define a player's worth. He showed us that there is another path to greatness, one marked by resilience, consistency, and the pursuit of perfection. Even when the ultimate prize remained elusive, his legacy isn't bound by the limitations of one missing ring. Instead, it's a story of a man who gave everything he had, year after year, and left the game stronger than he found it. In the end, he taught us that greatness is about impact, about inspiring others, and setting a standard that endures. So what do you think? Does Marino's legacy hold a place among the greatest to ever play, even without a Super Bowl win? Drop your thoughts below, and let's celebrate a career that, ring or no ring, will always be remembered.